The sun blazed overhead, baking the pavement as a small crowd gathered near a black SUV in the city center. Sweat dripped from Officer Daniels' brow as he stared through the fogged-up window. Inside, a K9 dog lay slumped on the seat, unmoving, its tongue hanging limply. Panic rose in his chest. He pounded on the glass once, twice, no response. Someone shouted behind him, "Break it already! He's dying!" Without thinking twice, Daniels grabbed his baton and smashed it against the driver's window. The glass exploded in a rain of shards. Reaching in, he carefully pulled the dog out, its breathing shallow and labored. The crowd gasped, phones capturing every second. Daniels cradled the limp dog in his arms, whispering, "Hold on, buddy." As sirens wailed in the distance, no one realized what had just begun. This wasn't just a rescue, it was the start of a storm. Just a few hours earlier, the town of Redwood Pines had woken to the familiar hum of cicadas and the dry sting of a rising summer heat. It was the kind of day where the asphalt shimmered and even the breeze felt like breath from an oven. Officer Daniels sipped his morning coffee as he rolled down the quiet streets in his patrol car, nodding to familiar faces watering lawns or opening shop doors. He liked mornings like this, routine, calm. Nothing urgent, nothing messy. A call came in, a stray dog near Elm Street. Then another, a minor fender bender outside the grocery store. Normal stuff. But then the radio crackled again. "Dispatch to Unit 12. We've got reports of a K9 unit left inside a vehicle, possibly unresponsive. Vehicles parked outside City Hall." Caller sounds panicked. Daniels sat up straight, a chill creeping down his spine. A K9. Left alone. That couldn't be right. Daniels hit the lights and sped toward City Hall, his heart thudding harder with every passing second. When he arrived, a small crowd had already formed near a black SUV parked crookedly under the blazing sun. The vehicle's windows were fogged and streaked with moisture. Inside, barely visible through the glass, was a German Shepherd, clearly a trained K9. His head was down, chest rising in short, labored bursts. Daniels stepped out of his cruiser, taking in the situation quickly. People were arguing, some filming, others shouting. "That dog's dying in there," one woman yelled. Another countered, "You can't just break into a police vehicle. That's government property." He tried the doors. All locked. He knocked on the window. No response. The dog didn't flinch. He peered closer. The K9 was in full uniform, tactical vest, badge patch on the side. Daniels recognized the unit. Shadow, one of their best narcotics dogs. But where was his handler? The heat was unbearable. Every second counted. Daniels felt a knot tighten in his gut. Protocol said wait for backup. But his instinct screamed louder. He backed up a step, gripped his baton, and without hesitation, aimed for the glass. He didn't care about rules. He cared about saving that dog. The moment the baton struck, the glass gave way with a sharp crack, shattering into a glittering spray across the pavement. Officer Daniels reached inside, unhooking the dog's harness and gently lifting him out. The K9 was heavier than he looked, his body limp and dangerously warm to the touch. Daniels laid him on the ground, shouting for water, anything cold. Someone rushed forward with a bottle. He poured it over the dog's head and chest, trying to cool him down. "Come on, Shadow," he whispered. "Stay with me." The crowd had gone silent. Phones were still recording, but no one was speaking now. The urgency had shifted to awe. Then, a faint stir. The dog's chest moved, just barely. Daniels let out a shaky breath. He'd acted on instinct, and now a life might be saved. But he couldn't shake the question. Why was a trained K9 left to die in a locked car? Shadow was rushed to the nearest veterinary clinic in the back of a patrol car, a young officer cradling him like a wounded soldier. Daniels followed close behind, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The adrenaline was fading, but his unease only grew. Something didn't sit right. Back at the station, questions buzzed like flies. Who had left Shadow in that SUV? Where was his handler, Officer Reed? Daniels checked the duty roster. Reed hadn't checked in for 2 days. A note in the system read, "Leave of absence, pending approval." But no approval had been filed. No one had spoken to him. That's when it hit Daniels. This wasn't a simple case of neglect. K9 units weren't just dogs, they were assigned, tracked, and deeply bonded to their handlers. For one to be abandoned like that, it wasn't just a mistake. It felt deliberate. And Daniels needed answers. Fast. Daniels couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. He started by digging into Officer Reed's recent activity logs. The last shift Reed had worked was 3 nights ago, a late patrol that ended near the industrial edge of town. His final logged stop? An abandoned warehouse on Riverbend Road. No explanation. No follow-up. He checked Shadow's GPS chip data. It confirmed it. Reed's vehicle had stayed parked near that warehouse for nearly 2 hours, long after any official patrol should have ended. When Daniels tried calling Reed's number, it went straight to voicemail. No one had seen him. Not friends. Not family. Not even his neighbors. Daniels pulled up security footage from a traffic cam near the lot. At 2:47 a.m., Reed's SUV had turned down the alley. It never came back out. The next day, Daniels met with the department's K9 supervisor. Shadow had no medical issues in his records. But the vet who treated him now had something chilling to report. Shadow's system showed traces of a powerful sedative, one not approved for K9 use. Daniels felt the weight of the truth pressing in. Shadow hadn't just been left behind. He'd been silenced. The next morning, Daniels drove to the warehouse alone, with Shadow in the back seat, now alert but restless. As they neared the lot, Shadow's ears perked up. His body stiffened. Daniels parked and stepped out, but the dog let out a sudden growl, his nose pressed to the window, eyes locked on a crumbling concrete wall nearby. Daniels opened the door, and Shadow bolted straight toward the wall, barking furiously. He started digging near a rusted drainage pipe. Within moments, his paws struck something solid, canvas. Daniels dropped to his knees and uncovered a buried duffel bag, zipped shut but caked with dirt. Inside, stacks of cash, sealed bags of white powder, 2 handguns, and a police badge. Reed's badge. Daniels stared in disbelief. This wasn't just abandonment. It was part of something far more sinister. He radioed it in, then carefully sat beside Shadow, who was still growling at the bag. Later, evidence tied Reed to an underground drug ring using K9 units to sneak past inspections. Shadow had likely discovered something he wasn't supposed to. And Reed? He vanished. His vehicle later found burned miles outside town. Shadow hadn't been forgotten. He'd been targeted. And his instincts had just blown the case wide open. News of the discovery spread like wildfire. Within 24 hours, Internal Affairs launched a full investigation. Officer Reed was declared a fugitive, and 2 other officers, both with ties to his unit, were placed on immediate suspension. Whispered rumors turned into hard evidence. Years of missing narcotics, tampered reports, and overlooked complaints came pouring to the surface. The town was stunned. People who had trusted the badge now questioned everything. But in the middle of the storm stood Officer Daniels, and beside him, Shadow. What had started as a desperate act to save a dog had exposed a rot hiding in plain sight. For many in Redwood Pines, it wasn't anger that took over, it was heartbreak. They had been lied to. But they also had something else. A hero. Or rather, 2 of them. Daniels had followed his gut. Shadow had followed his training. Together, they had pulled the truth out of the shadows. A week later, the town gathered outside City Hall under clearer skies. Children waved miniature flags, families held signs that read, "Thank you, Shadow," and local reporters lined the steps. The mayor stepped forward and handed Officer Daniels a plaque, his voice thick with emotion. "But this," he said, turning toward the German shepherd sitting proudly at Daniel's side, "this is the real hero." Shadow barked once, tail wagging slowly, eyes alert. The crowd erupted in cheers. The town declared it officially, Shadow's Day. A local park was renamed Shadow's Run, and a mural of Daniels and his 4-legged partner was painted on the side of the police station, capturing forever the moment they stood side by side. Shadow was retired from active duty that day, but not alone. Daniels adopted him formally, vowing he'd never spend another moment locked away or forgotten. They weren't just partners anymore. They were family. That evening, long after the crowd had left and the sun dipped behind the hills, Daniel sat quietly on his porch. Shadow lay beside him, head resting on his boots, eyes closed but ears still twitching at every sound. The town was safe, the streets quiet, but Daniel's mind replayed that moment in front of the SUV, when everything could have gone another way. "If I had hesitated," he whispered, running a hand through Shadow's fur, "you wouldn't be here. None of this would have come to light." Shadow let out a soft huff, as if he understood. The rescue video continued to circulate online, reaching beyond state lines, reminding people everywhere that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, matters. As the stars blinked awake above them, Daniel stood up. Shadow followed. They didn't need words. Because sometimes, saving one life reveals a truth that changes everyone's. And in Redwood Pines, it truly had.